You are running a grueling marathon. You hit mile 18, your muscles cramp, and you desperately need hydration. But when you arrive at the official aid station, you find out the organizers just tripled the price of water. You either pay or you collapse before reaching the finish line, where your supposed wage increase awaits. This is not friction, this is a fatal bug in our global economic operating system.
Okay, but look, while that sounds incredibly harsh, you are talking about standard market mechanisms. Like, yes, prices spike during scarcity, but that is how the system signals where capital needs to go.
Capital allocation is irrelevant when biological limits are breached. Today, we are analyzing this exact systemic failure. Is our economic model suffering from a self-destructive bug that cannibalizes its own foundation? I argue it is. It operates on a fatal logic error, prioritizing financial accumulation over physical limits, demanding an immediate shift to circular capitalism.
And, I represent the view that these are, painful but self-correcting mechanisms. Inflation and price disparities are rational responses to resource scarcity, not a terminal collapse.
Let us examine the logic error. The current system targets irreplaceable physical resources, water, food, energy, for aggressive price hikes because consumers possess inelastic demand. They cannot opt out of survival. It is the nonsensical equivalent of a sinking ship's crew upgrading the first-class dinner menu while simultaneously raising the rental fee for life jackets. The financial ledger grows, but the physical host is destroyed.
Calling it nonsensical ignores basic supply and demand. Like, if life jackets are scarce, the price goes up so people don't hoard them. It is not malicious, it is just math.
It is flawed math. You cannot ignore physical limits. It is exactly like tearing down the structural walls of the spaceship you are riding in just to use the metal as fuel for the engine. Yes, the engine runs faster for a moment, but you have destroyed the vessel. This necessitates circular capitalism, where the physical maintenance of life is the primary non-negotiable metric.
Right, but let's be real here. When you talk about this spaceship analogy, it makes it sound like we're all just passively burning up. But high prices in essential infrastructure, they send a necessary signal to the market to, stop over-consuming scarce resources.
You are relying on the corporate wage cycle defense. Explain the timeline of this so-called wealth generation.
Well, sure. When large corporations raise prices during a shortage, yes, they generate record revenues, but that money doesn't just disappear. It flows downstream, right? It funds R&D, it expands operations, and crucially, it eventually funds wage increases for employees. That creates a baseline for macroeconomic growth.
The timeline guarantees biological failure. By the time that theoretical wage increase trickles down, the subject has already succumbed to the immediate tripled cost of survival. Furthermore, the mechanism creates a boomerang effect. It is like a commercial airplane where the airline upgrades the air conditioning for first-class passengers. They celebrate the cool air, but to power it, the exhaust heat is blasted directly backward into the economy cabin, and those economy passengers are forced out onto the tarmac to physically push the plane.
Okay, wait, hold on. That is a completely exaggerated picture of how labor markets work.
It is a precise mapping of energy extraction. Large corporations currently operate as premium, paying players in an online game backed by state resources. They change the rules to suit themselves. Meanwhile, local small businesses face the inflation boss monster with no ability to raise prices and no healing items.
But that is a feature, not a bug. Small businesses failing is, it's market efficiency in action. If a business cannot absorb rising costs, the market naturally reallocates that labor to more productive sectors.
You classify the destruction of local economic infrastructure as a smooth reallocation.
Yes, exactly. Look at non-essential sectors. When inflation hits, places like the bridal industry or luxury dining face immediate demand destruction. Consumers decide, hey, we don't need a massive wedding right now. That proved the system works. It redirects capital away from luxuries and towards survival essentials.
That is not a reallocation. That is evidence of the societal matrix collapsing layer by layer. Imagine playing a survival game where the cost of essential water and health potions spikes. In response, the developers arbitrarily raise the participation fee for a character's wedding event or the price of a cosmetic dress. It is absurd.
But they don't need the dress. That's the whole point of prioritizing resources.
They need a functioning society. We inhabit a global share house. The landlord controlling the lifeline suddenly triples the utility bill, citing inflation. This forces every tenant to completely abandon culture, recreation, and community just to freeze in the corner while the landlord hoards the extracted cash.
You're looking at a temporary contraction and treating it like it's a permanent state of existence. We have historical precedents for getting through this.
You are mistaking internal ledger activity for forward momentum. The global economy is a high-tech EV stranded in the middle of a desert, critically low on power. Instead of conserving energy, the vehicle software automatically cranks the heated seats to maximum and blasts heavy bass from the audio system. It creates the illusion of powerful driving for the internal metrics right before it dies in the sand.
But you are completely ignoring the state. Governments don't just let the EV die in the sand. They step in with subsidies, support funds, energy price caps. They bridge the gap for the working class during high inflation, so people don't just, freeze in the share house.
The subsidy argument is a mathematically bankrupt accounting trick. State intervention extracts cash directly from the citizen's right pocket, takes a massive administrative cut to maintain its own bureaucracy, and eventually returns a fraction to the citizen's left pocket, proudly labeling it a special support fund.
Oh, come on. That is a terribly cynical way to view fiscal policy and wealth redistribution.
It is the physics of the system. It is a self-cannibalizing loop. Macroeconomic manipulation acts exactly like a smartphone at 3% battery. Instead of preserving energy, the programming triggers a maximum brightness festival mode, flashing its backlights wildly to proudly display its operational status to the user, instantly burning out its remaining circuits.
But human economies aren't rigid algorithms. We aren't just like dumb machines following a bad line of code.
Observe the smart AC in a freezing room. Unable to draw outside heat, the automated system shreds the wooden pillars of the house it is installed in and burns them in its internal heater. It proudly achieves the target temperature metric on its display at the exact moment the crushed house collapses on top of it.
This is what I mean, though. We aren't a smart AC. We are adaptable agents. Look at the 20th century, right? We hit physical limits with fertilizer, everyone predicted mass starvation, and then we invented the Haber-Bosch process. We innovate out of scarcity. We don't just burn our own house down.
Innovation under this operating system merely accelerates extraction. You invent a more efficient chainsaw to clear-cut the forest faster. It is like giving an energy-saving award to a smartphone that turned its screen brightness completely to zero. Yes, the battery lasts longer, but the device is a useless paperweight.
Calling the market a useless paperweight completely ignores the billions of people it has sustained. Yes, we are under massive strain right now, but humans invent new energy sources. We optimize. We are not a programmed automatic pet water dispenser that just blindly boils its last drop of water to cool an empty tank until it bursts into flames. We adapt.
The algorithmic failure you just described is exactly what is happening at a macroeconomic scale.
Look, I get that the vivid analogies brilliantly expose the friction, the absurdities of localized resource mismanagement. I really do. But systemic strain is simply not the same as systemic self-destruction. The capacity for human systems to innovate out of scarcity remains robust. The market will adapt as it always has. We encourage everyone listening to, evaluate this for yourselves. Look into the source material on circular capitalism and decide if we are self-correcting or self-immolating.
The evaluation is a matter of physics, not opinion. Ignoring the physical survival costs of biological life in favor of macroeconomic ledger scores is a fatal hack of the human lifeline. The current model is a suicidal machine burning its own infrastructure to maintain the illusion of performance. A transition to circular capitalism is not a theoretical debate. It is the only rational investment for survival. Thank you for joining us on The Debate.